Hello and welcome to the City of London Corporation's Apprenticeship webinars. I'm Claire Tunley, the Head of Employability at the City of London Corporation. Since the levy was introduced back in 2017, we've supported a number of businesses in the city to understand how apprenticeships work, how to make the apprenticeships work for their business. The process can seem a little bit complex and confusing, particularly if you're a smaller business and you might not have a great HR team to engage with the process. But if you're paying the levy and you really want to use your investment, these webinars are for you. To help businesses understand the process, we've designed a series of 8 videos to dismantle some of the complexity around apprenticeships and simplify the steps involved in taking on an apprentice. We're covering a range of topics, including the apprenticeship levy, stakeholder engagement, training providers and endpoint assessors, and how to recruit. Whilst all the information that we cover is accurate and complete today, please do refer to the Government Apprenticeship website for the most recent information, as things can change. Today we're looking at stakeholder engagement and readying your business for an apprentice. I'm joined by Mahoney from the City HR Association. They're a membership body for HR professionals in the city. Hello Cindy.
Hi Claire.
We've heard in the first webinar some of the fundamentals of what an apprenticeship is, but companies that might be taking on their first apprentice, can you tell us a little bit about what they might want to think about to set up the programme and embed it into their business?
So I think a lot of the considerations, Claire, are similar to anybody that you're bringing into the organisation, but there are some special things in addition to take into consideration when we're looking at the apprentice, because clearly they're being trained for a specific role. That's exactly why we've brought them into the organisation. So some of the additional things I would encourage people to think about is, first off, the business case. Have you got buy-in? Have you established the business case with the senior stakeholders and got their buy-in to the business case for this approach? I also think we need to look at performance management, because whereas for a normal member of staff they're brought in to do the role, we have to recognise that some time will be taken out for the additional training that's required as part of the apprenticeship programme, and so therefore performance management we should rethink that. And finally, it has to be a three-way intervention between yourself, the training provider and the line manager, because the training provider can help significantly.
Okay, you've mentioned the line manager there, and how critical is it to get the buy-in of the line manager, do you think?
It is absolutely critical to get the line manager's buy-in. Finding somebody who will be a future line manager of an apprentice, finding somebody with that real passion for developing in the organisation makes a huge difference. If you haven't got that, then I think you need to look for somewhere else to place your apprentice.
Cindy, you mentioned the business case for taking on an apprentice. Can you perhaps give us some of the key points that a business might think about when creating a business case to take on an apprentice?
Yes, absolutely. And I think first of all and foremost, you need to build planning for apprenticeships into your strategic workforce planning, thinking about the skills and capabilities you're going to need going forward, which of them would be appropriate and relevant to be brought in at apprenticeship level, whether it's level 3 or level 6 or 7 at the master's level. So make sure it is part of your strategic recruiting plan for the organisation, rather than trying to fit it in addition. So make it strategic first of all. A number of organisations, we're encouraging them to think about their talent pipeline, the extent to which they need certain skills and capabilities into the organisation. So for example, it's very pertinent at the moment that there is a skills gap in compliance and risk, and so therefore by running a graduate entry level compliance and risk apprenticeship, you can grow your own talent and develop your own talent, which actually we know improves the retention of and the engagement of the apprentice after their qualifications have ended anyway. So there's a win all round there.
So Cindy, you mentioned earlier about how important it is to get the manager buy-in to taking on an apprentice, the line manager that is. We do hear from managers who are a little bit nervous about the off-the-job training element of apprenticeships, and they don't think they can accommodate that within their team. Can you tell us some of the other barriers that people do mention to you about taking on an apprentice?
So I think culturally, for some organisations, they're very used to hiring graduates from specific universities. And so to achieve the mindset shift that you need to get senior buy-in does take a lot of investment of time and influence. You need somebody who has access to the exco, who can really articulate the organisational benefits quite clearly to get that level of buy-in. Another barrier we do come across, which maybe wasn't so prevalent 20, 30 years ago, is that apprentices are no longer seen as a viable alternative to recruiting graduates. But there are many jobs in the financial services sector and more broadly where you don't need somebody at graduate level. You can take somebody in post A-level qualification and train them on the job, send them to a professional college to get the academic education that they need to support. And for some reason, whilst we did a lot of this in the 80s, probably it was a viable route post education, it's ceased to be so more recently, and we need to re-establish that as a viable alternative.
We do hear from businesses that they aren't necessarily getting all the attributes they want in graduates these days, so maybe apprenticeships are a good route to test.
Absolutely.
So what about some of the other things that businesses might see as a barrier but actually can be resolved?
It's been interesting through the work that we've been doing with smaller banks and financial services organisations. A lot of them only have a couple of people in HR, maybe 250 people in the London office. They only have the capacity in HR to bring maybe 1 or 2 people in, but we've helped them overcome that by getting them to work closely with other organisations and co-commission together and use their network of smaller firms in the city. To collaborate with the training providers, being really selective. Some of the training providers now offer open courses, so you can put 1 or 2 people through. You don't have to go in with a wish list for training 30 graduates. You can just sign up 1 person. And I think there's also a concern that, especially in smaller organisations, that they have the lack of experience to train staff. Start small. Get line managers involved who want to develop their talent. Find the line managers with the passion for developing the younger talent pipeline into the organisation, and actually you'll find it's a lot easier than maybe you first thought.
Cool. And we've also heard that apprentices, there's no age limit, so it can actually be for internal recruitment as well as external recruitment. So we can be converting existing staff into apprentices, which does take away some of the risk. And I know many companies have started with an internal candidate to become an apprentice as their first step on the apprenticeship journey, if you like. We also know that the retention rate for apprentices is actually much better than graduates. So that's another incentive to look at apprenticeships as an option.
Indeed, there's often concern that I'm investing all of this money in developing somebody and no sooner they're qualified will they walk out the door. That absolutely isn't the case. Evidence tells us time and time again that the retention rates and the employee engagement of people who have had the benefit of an apprenticeship programme and the investment of your time and energy in them is far, far higher than staff who haven't had that investment. So, not the case.
So we've seen there's a number of barriers, potential barriers to taking on an apprentice, but many of them can be quite easily overcome, can't they, Cindy?
Indeed.
That's right. That concludes our Stakeholder Engagement webinar, so I want to say thank you to Cindy for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you.